coming up this way.
Hey, how you doing, Don? Good, glad to see you.
Let me up to the microphone.
Huh?
So they just let me up to the microphone.
Oh yeah?
That's the one that said, well, you have a left boot or a right boot on your neck, there's no consequence.
Yeah. So you got up there, or you're next
No,
up?
I just now.
I'd come over here to sit down. That sun was getting to me.
I had to work my way up there.
How long is that list?
Of unity.
Yeah. How long is that list?
The
sign up list?
became an open mic at that point.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they saw the mic was open, and I just walked up and did it.
Good.
That's the whole thing. I said, we cannot let them keep dividing us. That's how they
Yeah.
I'm curious about
CEO of JP Morgan. Part and parcel for the entire derivative scam that's brought down our economy, that's caused the housing bubble to go to the sky, and now people can't afford their homes. His bank was one of the banks that was bailed out. His bank is also one of the banks that is kicking people out of their homes. His bank also profited along with Goldman Sachs from the bailout of AIG, who still owes this nation $50 billion of payback 3 years later. If you owe a bank money and you don't pay it for 3 years, how much interest accrues? Tons. They charge you tons, and then they send police to come after you and confiscate your property. Who's confiscating the private jets that AIG is traveling around on? Who's confiscating their luxury offices? They still owe $50 billion and haven't paid a single penny of interest on it. That's the problem. Yeah. Look, man, read. If the information's out there, man, it's out there.
I try to educate myself as much as possible. I got Netflix like a year ago, and I haven't stopped watching documentaries.
Inside Job.
Yeah.
Outstanding documentary. Very good.
About him?
It explains the entire housing bubble, how it was.
Can you get that on the internet? Inside Job?
Inside Job, Netflix. You can get it on Netflix. Outstanding documentary. Explains it very well. And you're doing exactly what you should do. Ask questions and demand answers. Ask questions.
I'm trying to read a lot of the signs. This is all new to me, but I'm kind of sitting on my ass.
This is a guy who came out and said we are doing the work of God.
Jamie Dimon.
Jamie Dimon. The CEO of Goldman Sachs, Lloyd Blankfein. They were standing together and they proclaimed they were doing the work of God by being bailed out and saving us. Basically, they put a gun to the nation's head and said, you either bail us out or we take down the economy. If we had not bailed them out, it would have been very ugly, but it would have been akin to having cancer, having that tumor removed and going through chemo. It would have been difficult, but all they did by bailing them out was put a Band-Aid on the cancer. The tumor's still growing.
When do you think it's going to crash? The whole thing.
March is going to be
keep
ugly.
it going?
March is going to be ugly.
Give the picture full time.
Between now and March, it's going to get
I
ugly.
don't know how long they can keep it going.
The Fed's out of bullets.
I mean,
The Fed's out of bullets.
just
The only thing they can do at this point is
Get a shot
quantitative
again.
ease.
they're going to do another 3.
Yeah, and if they do that, they diminish the value of our dollar even more.
Right,
So our dollar buys less milk, less bread.
Right, but it's less of your paycheck.
We can't afford to keep this route.
Right.
These guys are criminals. What they did was a crime. They packaged mortgage into securities
Right.
that they knew were going to fail. They sold those mortgages, and then they turned around and bet against them.
Yeah,
So the
derivatives.
crime profited them twice. And not one financial institution leader has gotten prosecuted for the crime. Not one. They've thrown puppets up there. They've caught real criminals and puppeted them up there. But this man here is now on the president's economic advisor board. We have to ask that. Why? Why, if you're backing us, Mr. President, do you have one of the largest criminal bankers on your economic advisor board? We have to ask questions. We have to demand answers. Why are these guys not being prosecuted? Because what they did was a crime.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It was a crime.
You talking about mortgage-backed securities?
Yeah.
They package more than like one mortgage could be in 100 different securities.
Yeah,
How can one mortgage be in 100 different
That's what I,
ones?
yeah.
Grasp this
Now somebody
number.
can figure out who got the mortgage.
There is a quadrillion dollars worth of derivatives
Yeah.
floating in the world right now. That's a number that is
They're not
it's
going to pay it off.
unfathomable.
Yeah, it is.
It's akin to the Tower of
They
Babel.
committed
You can
fraud.
build something so tall that it has no choice but to collapse.
Yeah.
It was based on greed,
Yeah, that's
pure
right.
greed. The bubble is causing many, many, many millions of Americans to suffer. I think something like 10 million Americans were in foreclosure just last year from the banks that received bailouts.
Yeah.
They were insolvent. They are still insolvent. If they were forced to list their assets at market value, what we call mark to market, they would be insolvent because the homes have lost so much value that the loans that they have on those homes that they're keeping on their books is the only thing that's keeping them in the blue. What they have right now is what we call mark to fantasy.
Yeah.
They get to mark the value of those homes at the peak of the market, the 2005 value.
Yeah.
But when we get our home assessed, it's
Right.
mark to market.
Or if you're
So
trying to
it's two
sell it.
different rules.
Yeah.
The 99% suffer the mark to market. We can't get loans. All the major bankers, they can go to the Fed, what's called the open window, and they can get almost a 0% interest rate that they can put into the market and recoup their losses over and over again. And who are they recouping those losses from? They're churning them from pension funds, from individuals who want to invest. The stock market's toast at this point because they have destroyed it by flooding it with so much liquidity. There's no way we can keep this up.
Right, bad
It's a criminal act that has not gone prosecuted.
Can I
And
ask a quick question? Just your opinion on something, because you're definitely really educated in this. I was listening to Michael Moore the other day, and he said that if your home does go into foreclosure, because I started to go into foreclosure, I was 3 months behind. They started to foreclose, and basically my wife and I did some finagling with paperwork and got them to not foreclose. But they raised my mortgage to make up for, so I was paying $1,200, now I'm paying $1,500, and it's spread out to make it up. So I might go in foreclosure again. I'm working 3 jobs, part-time jobs, trying to make up for having lost one full-time. And Michael Moore was saying, he said, if it comes to that point where they come to tell you you're in foreclosure, he said just squat because they can't find that mortgage because, like you said, it's spread out.
Yeah.
And when you see them come out, with a plan, we're going to help the borrowers, help the mortgage people. We're going to help them with. The only reason they're doing that is not for the mortgage people; it's for their own self-interest.
Right.
Because if they foreclose on that home now is a burden to them. They have to maintain it because it's going to begin to lose value. And at that point, what they have listed on their books as a $200,000 home will be dropping in value. So to have you in that house paying that mortgage is the most valuable thing for them. They want to foreclose, but it will destroy them to foreclose because then that house is a burden to them. They have to sell it, and when they sell it, the banks derive profit on the interest you pay on that mortgage. When they foreclose on that home, now they have the home. They no longer have your interest payment. They have the home and the value of the home on their books, and the problem of maintaining.
So you would
that
say
home.
squatting is effective.
Squatting
if it's your own
effective.
home.
If it's your last resort, it's effective, and it's probably
They can
what
produce
it's gonna
that
come
mortgage.
to for a
Make the
lot of
bank
people.
produce that mortgage.
Right.
That's what Michael
Because
Moore
it's
said.
in-
He said
because it
demand that
sliced it
they
up.
produce because it doesn't exist.
Well, they committed a fraud
He's
because
exactly
it's
right.
in different kinds of derivatives. they might
Yeah.
have sold it to 10 or 15 different guys.
Yeah, he's exactly
They
right.
committed
What he's
a
saying is
fraud,
exactly right. The
Yeah.
derivatives have gotten so far convoluted that most of the mortgage paper, no one actually knows who possesses it,
Right.
who's in ownership of it, because so many people are in ownership. It is basically a Ponzi scheme.
And the bank's been forging signatures. You watch that thing
Yeah.
on 60 Minutes? They the same, you know, the people that didn't exist been signing those mortgages.
And when someone
Or
produces
signing
the
your name
argument,
onto
they loan to people who shouldn't have taken those loans, that's a straw man argument. The question that should be asked in return to that argument is, whose money did they loan? Okay?
Right.
If you're making a bad
good.
loan with someone else's money,
Right.
that is malfeasance. That's
Right.
negligence,
That's
and
true.
that is criminal negligence. Because all you're doing by making bad loans with other people's money is inflating the value of the property, which makes it unaffordable to people who are losing their jobs. And to try to sustain this housing bubble at the prices, that's all they're doing by creating this liquidity, is to try to maintain the housing prices. Housing prices cannot maintain. There's a simple equation. In a bottom of a housing market, interest rates are high. Interest rates are high. That's why you hit a bottom. People can't borrow at high interest rates. So the housing market bottoms out and the prices bottom out. We're in ZIRP right now, zero interest rate policy. As long as you are loaning at zero interest rate or slightly above, you're never going to hit a housing bottom. You're going to maintain a zombie plateau. And all it's going to do is cause more and more burden and inflation, and it's going to cause the people who are struggling to maintain that house to have to pay more for food, more for milk, more for all the necessities, while the assets they own are going to start dropping in value. Because they're going to have to liquidate their assets just to live, just to survive. And as they begin to sell their valuable assets that they've worked their entire life to save and accrue, those assets are going to lose value, because, as you know, supply, when it overwhelms demand, causes the price to drop. So asset prices are going to be dropping in the next 12 months. You're going to see serious drop in asset prices while you see inflation in necessities. It's a very dangerous situation we're in. It's a very dangerous situation, because when your asset values drop and the cost of your survival goes up, you're in it's just a no-win situation. It's a disaster in the making. And unfortunately, I don't see any way we're going to get out of it at this point. But the very first thing we need to do is start prosecuting these people before the statute of limitations runs out. It's a 5-year statute of limitations on financial crimes. They paid their way through the last 3 years. It's time to get these guys and put them in jail. It's time to get them. They have caused this collapse. They've caused misery like no one has ever seen in this country. What we have coming could make the depression of the 30s seem like almost nothing. I mean, that was a hard time, but what they have set us up for now, and they're asking for more money, it's just putting, they can't even peel the paper off the Band-Aids fast enough to put the Band-Aids on the problem. That's the situation that they're in. Bernanke, he has no idea what to do at this point.
I was going to ask you about the Federal Reserve,
Yeah.
and with them just basically printing money at will, that's
Yeah,
part of the inflation problem.
Yeah,
as well,
yeah,
right?
because that divides, that diminishes the value of your dollar. If you take a pie, and I cut that pie into 12 pieces, okay, 12 pieces are this big, and we each get this big of a piece. But if I decide to make that pie 24 pieces, well, now you get a smaller piece. It's the same thing when you print more money.
It's like Monopoly.
You know, $100 will chase a certain amount of goods at a certain price. But when you have $200 out there, they start $200 are chasing those goods. Those goods that you're chasing, if they're necessities, the price is going to go up.
Most of the people learning up here, including myself, are still learning how to communicate with everyone. So it's just really great for everyone to know how to do this. Right. Next up. Sorry, traffic comes here. Okay, next up, the most important one, and the one that brings any consensus check to a halt. With consensus, because this is a leaderless body, any proposal we might adopt here, we're doing with modified consensus. That means we need 9/10 approval.
And Channel 13's their Facebook page, and just ask them for all candidates that are on the ballot to be allowed to speak during the debates. That's all I need you to do. Just let everyone have the freedom of speech. Thank you.
It's a different world is what I grew up with.
Are we going that way or are we continuing around?
What happened to all of you? I can swear there's about 400 of you.
I counted around 300, but that's just the way. We're gonna use water real quick.